you talk to your parents about the academy? Do you find yourself leaving things out, editing your stories so they can more easily understand? I know I do. Like, they make an effort, but they can't even remember what squadron I'm in or what Silver Saturday means. GR sometimes is difficult. But at least they're trying. My siblings are more like the average civilian. Like, they listen, they nod, but they don't really understand, and they don't really particularly care to try to. Like, they're well-meaning, but they're more focused on their own lives. So now imagine that you're a soldier, just returned from war, and this attitude of indifference is what greets you. You've been off in another country, fighting, bleeding, suffering terrible loss for these people back home, and you return to find out that no one knows or understands what you've done. Well, there's no one to talk to, really, but other veterans, and they're not really keen on talking because admitting you need help and that you need to talk to someone is a sign of weakness, and they're too prideful for that. So there ends up being this disconnect between civilians and veterans that can be pretty hard to breach. How do you come home from war? That's the question that Roxanna Robinson tried to answer with Conrad's character in Sparta. And it's a question that needs to be answered because 2.28 million people were deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, and only 6,084 of them were killed. More than 99% of the people who were deployed, they have to figure out how to come home and get back to their mundane civilian lives. Like, the dead, they're done. They get a rest now, but the living have to carry their suffering with them. Speaking of suffering, 20% of Iraqi veterans have PTSD. In Sparta, Conrad suffers from PTSD, and he displays all 4 of the types of symptoms. There's intrusive memories, flashbacks, and dreams, because he thinks constantly about the IED that killed his man, Oliveira. There's avoidance, trying to get away from things that brought you trauma, but like in this story, when he's driving in traffic and it's just normal and he sees a white car. And he's in the USA, so he knows it poses no danger, but he still can't control himself and he has to get away from it because his brain is screaming that it is dangerous. You have your negative changes in thinking and mood, emotional numbness, lack of interest in activities once enjoyed, and difficulty maintaining close relationships. He struggles with Claire upon returning home, and they just can't relate to each other anymore. And finally, you got your changes in emotional reactions, which is what he's most affected by. This anger, irritability, aggressiveness for the slightest of provocations. Just feeling on guard, wary of danger. Self-destructive behavior, like his alcoholism that develops, and trouble concentrating. Sparta shows that the horrors of war often follow people back home. As most civilians expect their buddies who went off to war to come back and kind of spring back to their pre-war state and easily and quickly, and are just confused when they don't. This emotional damage contributes to the disconnect and misunderstanding between civilians and warfighters. Robinson made a huge effort to understand the veteran experience. She did 5 years of research to write her book. Majority of civilians cannot say the same. Most people are pretty ignorant about what goes on in war, which can be a good thing. I mean, people fight wars to protect the people back home from the horror and the atrocity. But as a result of this, many veterans come back and they feel isolated and lost with no one to talk to. Robinson caught a lot of flack for coming here to USAPA at the Janetta lecture and talking about her book and her beliefs. Hardly anyone there had read Sparta to completion or read Sparta at all, so all they heard was Quaker and pacifist. Cadets complained about her, myself included. How dare you come into our house and not know your audience? But she did know us, and in reality, we were the ones who didn't understand. And we had a narrow-minded, military-focused viewpoint. Because Sparta is an essential book, And it takes that great gaping divide between the civilian and the warfighter experience and uses Conrad's viewpoint to build a bridge. And with stories like these, hopefully we'll be better able to understand each other and help each other in the future. Thank you.